The Madden 23 beta has been out for a couple of days now, and I've played a lot of games, so it's time to give my hands-on first impressions so that I can tell you exactly what the game is playing like. I also finally have codes to give away. I'll be giving them away later tonight on my social medias, which are up on the screen now. So again, later tonight, I will make a post about how you can enter the giveaway so that you can try to play for yourself. Also, keep in mind, I've gotten feedback from a ton of different people. I've looked all over the internet. I've also asked a lot of different types of players, how are they feeling about the beta, so that I could get kind of a general consensus of what people are thinking. So it's not just strictly my own opinion, but trying to see who agrees with me on what and who disagrees with me so that I can give you a more accurate representation, because everybody views the game differently. By far, the two things I have seen the most from literally everybody I've asked is that tackling is much improved and that zone coverage and just defensive AI in general is much improved. Now, tackling makes sense because that's one of the biggest parts of their new Field Sense gameplay system, a more physics-based tackling system. Yes, there's a lot of new animations, over 3,500 new animations, which I think is actually a good thing. The problem that Madden has is that they don't have a deep enough animation library, and that's why you see a lot of the warping or a lot of the suction things or just the animations playing out that literally make no sense because they don't have enough animations to pull from. Physics is more about the collisions and what happens when players are actually interacting with each other. They both have to work together, but because Madden typically has not had nearly enough animations, you see the same ones play out over and over, and that's why the game doesn't feel fresh. I will say there are some animations that I have been seeing that still do play out way more than others. I guess maybe they're just more practical in certain situations, but that definitely is there. It's still a Madden game. It still feels like a Madden game. It just feels a little bit better. It's a little more cleaned up. The tackling is a lot more organic, a lot more physics based. I've seen some people compare it to like Madden 18, where people said that they felt the animations were better that year and the tackling was better. I've seen some people compare it to Madden 25, which is definitely a game a lot of people liked from a movement and tackling standpoint. I would tend to agree. I think this is the best tackling I've seen in Madden for a while. You see a lot more organic outcomes. Players can add on to tackles. Players can add on to animations, whereas in the past they struggled to do that. You know, a guy can be standing up, a ball carrier and a linebacker, for example, and another guy will come and just push him back and drive him back and, you know, knock him backwards or try to jump at his feet and take him down. Or they try to get in there and they punch the ball out. You see that a lot. Like, it's actual smart defensive plays. They get in there while someone's being stood up and they try to punch that ball loose to cause a fumble. You see a lot more of that, just organic branching outcomes. You see a lot of branching out of one animation into another, whereas in the past, if certain animations triggered, there's just no getting out of it. No matter what you try to do, it's going to carry out and nothing can interrupt that. That's really the biggest visual change and I guess immersive change, because you see tackles on nearly every play and now they actually look better. It looks a lot more like football. And the next thing is defensive coverages. The defensive zone coverage is probably the best I've ever seen in Madden. And I know some people will say, Eric, you say this every year. You try to hype the game up. You say coverage is good every year. No, let's listen to a clip from my Madden 22 beta video. The coverages are still pretty bad in my opinion. This has just been an area that EA has struggled with Madden. Zones not playing how they're supposed to, but the deep zones aren't playing good. The deep halves for cover 2 play terrible. The deep thirds for cover 3, while they're better about not letting stuff easily get over the top of them, they're not as good at the stuff underneath them or on the sideline. So you can still roll out and hit corners very easily. And remember how I said the QB scramble is better this year. So rolling out, hitting corner routes is definitely going to still be a thing this year. Now let's listen to a clip from my Madden 21 beta video. Is the fact that defense in general is awful right now. Zones are awful, and they always are for the beta. It just seems like kind of a thing that always happens. They usually get buffed a little bit when the game comes out, but right now this is an offensive game. You will score 50 a game. So no, I don't say coverage is good every year. I say what's real. It's been bad in the past, and now it's not. It's actually good. And in fact, tomorrow I have a dedicated video that's going to be breaking down not only the changes in defensive coverage, but also the entire change to the passing system. And EA actually has given me some exclusive gameplay footage to show you guys tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on if you want to see that video. It's two of the biggest changes to the game, and they've allowed me to have some exclusive footage of actual gameplay in action so that I could show it to you guys. But basically, zones just play smart now. They stay where they're supposed to. They actually pick up routes like crossers and corners when there's nothing else in their area to drive them deeper. The deep zones don't get fooled nearly as easily by like one-play touchdowns. And when you combine this with the fact that the pass rush is also really sped up, the pass rush gets home quick. You don't have all day to pass anymore. It's hard to just hold the ball and want to throw a deep cross or a deep corner or a one-play touchdown every play, because even if the zones may break down, you don't even have the time to get it off. But the zones very rarely are breaking down. For example, in past games, if you wanted to throw a crosser every play, it would pretty much be open at every play at some point. Now you need a vertical threat, a streak on the sideline to run that cornerback out of the play. If not, if he sees the only thing in his vicinity is that crossing route or that corner a route, he picks it up now. He actually says, okay, this is the only thing near me. I'm going to pick this up and carry it to the sideline. Hard flats actually jump flat routes now. They don't just drift back and allow you to catch the flat right in front of them. It's literally the best zone coverage I've ever seen in Madden, and I hope they don't touch it. A lot of people are saying it's hard to pass. Defense is actually tough for once, but most people do seem to like that because defenses are usually pretty good in real life, and it creates a challenge. You can't just hold the ball every play for 5 seconds. You can't just try to spam the same route every play. You got to kind of mix it up, and don't get it twisted. Someone eventually will find the glitch plays. They will find the meta or how to break the game. They always will, but it's nice to see that some of the things that have plagued the game for so long are not a thing, at least right now, because defense is playing smart and pass rush is getting home and not allowing you to just stand back there and do whatever you want every play. Also, I'd like to urge you that don't go out and pre-order the game. Don't take anybody's word for it. I know regardless of what some people might say, I'm not trying to sell you the game. I don't care if you buy the game at all. I always urge you, play the $5 trial before the game releases. You're basically renting the game. See if you like it before you go play it, because a lot of people are liking the beta right now. The general consensus is that people like the way the game is playing. It still has some issues, but it's really in a much better state than some of these previous games, but you may not like it, so you need to see for yourself before you spend your money. Don't listen to anybody else. Now, overall, just going back to more of the interactions, the hits, you see a lot more mid-air collisions now. You see a lot more branching. Like I said, people coming out of nowhere and making hits, people coming out of nowhere and adding on and making those tackles. The branching technology, whatever it is that they did with that, I don't know the technicalities of it, but you notice the difference now. You can branch out of different things. The interactions, the DB and wide receiver interactions are really good. The DBs have a lot of different ways to try to swat the ball or knock the ball out. The wide receivers have different ways. If you click on, you can kind of go up, especially if you're a bigger receiver. I feel like they made this a little better last year, but I think they've taken it even further this year. You can kind of click on, go up, and take the ball from a smaller defensive back a little bit more often, which is good. Now, I will talk about an area that I do think is bad. Now, while I said pass rush is really good and it may be a little too good, I could see that maybe getting dialed back a little, but I don't think they need to touch it too much because you shouldn't have all day to pass. You really notice it more too because the O-line, I feel like, is one of the biggest areas that's still pretty bad. That is an area that still needs a lot of love. They still miss some easy blocks. They still target, poorly where, okay, the linebacker's here, but they run up and take the safety instead. There's still a lot of times where the pocket does not form consistently. So those are areas that they need to fix. The same attention to detail and love that they gave to defensive coverages and to tackling, you need to now put that into the O-line, EA, because now that we've seen two other areas of the game finally play a lot more respectable and just flat out better, it makes the O-line being bad stand out even worse. So that's where I think they need to put the love to next. If the O-line is kind of a make or break thing for you, you're probably still not going to be too happy with the game. But if some of the other areas were a bigger deal, maybe you will be happy. The new passing system is cool. Like I said, I'll break it down more tomorrow, but it is harder to use. It's not a pick up and play feature. It does create a skill gap. You can make back shoulder throws. You can make proper end zone fades. Finally, you can lead the ball where only the receiver can get it. You can pinpoint it. They did try to do this in Madden 18. They executed it really bad. That's why they took it out. They brought it back. They've actually done it right this time. They've made it a ton better, a ton easier to use. But when I say easier to use, that doesn't mean it's just easy overall. It is something that you would have to practice. You have to learn. And I do kind of expect a lot of people, especially at first, to just turn the feature off and just to use the classic passing system because it will be a little overwhelming. But if you're a guy that wants the realism, you want more realistic throws, you want the more difficult throws, and you want to learn how to do them, it's going to be more rewarding if you give yourself the time with it. But again, I'll break that down more tomorrow with some gameplay footage. Scrambling and throwing on the run has definitely been addressed finally. Escape Artist is not even an ability anymore. It's an X factor, and even with the X factor, it's not as powerful as it was. They kind of reduce the speed boost of it. But even fast QBs, like, yes, you can still scramble, not nearly as easy. It can't be your entire offense. You can't just snap the ball and roll out every single play because contains finally do a pretty decent job. But really the biggest thing to me is even when you do not contain, more times than not, I would say like 85% of the time, the edge rushers will disengage when you start to break the pocket and they will chase you as they're supposed to. They won't just continue to rush against the blocker and try to do a pass rush move. Now, every once in a while, they do still get caught up or they get pushed inside, which I mean, I'm fine with, because in the NFL that happens. Like, sometimes the containment does get broken, but more times than not, even with the regular rush, the edge rushers will disengage and they will go after your QB, making it hard to scramble on the outside. Now, I do think scrambling up the middle when the rush lanes present themselves, that still works very well, and that's how I will see more people probably doing it, because that is available, but it's not as easy as just snap and just go to the outside and nobody can stop you. And throwing on the run definitely has a lot more inaccuracy penalties now, which they should. Throwing on the run is not easy, so when you try to just do it every single play, you're going to see a little bit more variety in kind of the inaccuracies. The same with the low ball. A lot of people would spam low ball, like wheel routes and curl routes and stuff like that, and they were impossible for the defense to defend. There's a lot more variance with the inaccuracies now. At least half the time you try to low ball, which it should, because throwing a super low ball pass, you know, there's not a lot of window for error on those passes, and before there was literally no window for error. They would always be perfect. Now at least half the time they're going to be inaccurate, so they're not as guaranteed anymore. The running game feels good. I like running the ball. I think this could potentially be a runner's game, just because defense right now is so good against the pass that, you know, you have to make quick throws. You have to like really be smart and have a real purpose with your passing strategy, because if you just want to spam certain routes or hold the ball or try to throw deep every play, between the coverage and the pass rush, it's just not there. So I think this could potentially be a runner's game. I think the run game's in a decent state, not too overpowered, not too bad. It feels good, but we'll see if somebody finds a way to break it. Maybe that changes, but right now I think it could potentially be a runner's game. And lastly, some presentation stuff. Pre-game is mostly the same. I would say about 80-85% the same as it was last year. They did add some new stuff, some new cinematic shots. They did add a few new cutscenes that you will see, but like I said, most of the pre-game stuff is the same as last year. When you score a touchdown, there is a new graphic that I think looks really nice that pops up, so that's there. There are some more team celebrations and things like that I've noticed, and the player models are much better. That's another thing I've seen across the board from more like simulation type guys, is they like that the new player models are more varied. They actually look different. The pads are finally slimmer and it looks like what players wear in real life. I'm seeing that you can move the towel all around finally. There's new helmets and cleats for sure. The arm sleeves look a little better as well. They do still look painted on where the sleeve kind of stops and meets the skin, but there are more like wrinkles and ripples in the sleeve, so they look a little more realistic, but I think there's still more work they can do. But overall, player models and equipment, they definitely did some upgrades there. I'm sure they'll dive deeper into it later on, but that's about it for so far between gameplay and presentation. Check out this video right here on the screen where I went in depth about everything you need to know about the new FieldSense gameplay system.